Hello, my name is Nadine and welcome to Hop Along Studio. So this week I wanted to talk about one of the goals that I set for this year. Last week I did speak about the idea of goal setting and why it was important, and I wanted to follow up with one of my own personal goals. So one of my goals this year is, for the sake of maybe some self-development, mental health, I have chosen 12 books that I am going to read this year, and every month on my website I am going to write about what I learned from them. To start with, here's the entire pile of books, and they all have some slightly different things that I would like to learn from them this year. I actually have John C. Maxwell's Failing Forward, which is a fantastic book that I have only partially gotten through, about the idea of the importance of failure and why failure is so important in our lives and how we need to learn to fail if we are going to be successful in our lives. And it's been a really good read so far. I do have trouble sometimes finishing some of these books, so that's why I am actually putting them as a goal for myself this year. The next book on my list is a book by Ruth Soukup called Do It Scared. I've actually followed her podcast for Do It Scared for a while, and it talks a lot about the idea of being able to choose to do things that scare you, but realizing that there's such benefit to it that it's important that for us being who we are, that we're able to do things, we can move past that fear and do it anyways. And so for me, considering some of the things that I'm dealing with in my own personal life, being able to move past the fear to do it anyways, I thought would be something really helpful for me this year. I was recommended to read Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. I have read some of her other books and they have been fantastic, and being in a place where I am deciding to choose a different path, the idea of learning to dare greatly and be able to let myself stretch in a way that maybe I haven't before is really important to me. So I thought that would be very helpful. My fourth book is The Gifts of Imperfection. So The Gifts of Imperfection I have read before. This is my first book that I read by Brene Brown, and it changed my world. Just the way she writes, the encouragement that it brought me. It's something that I will reread every year just because it is such a powerful book. And if you've never read Brene Brown's books, I would say start with The Gifts of Imperfection. It is a really excellent book, and it is not a very long read. I found this book called Codependent No More: How to Stop Controlling Others and Start Caring for Yourself. And codependency is something that we don't talk enough about in society, and I think it's something that's really important to address in our own personal lives. So I'm going to give this book a read this year and hopefully be able to learn something really valuable from it. My next book is called Almost Anxious, and this for me is, I think, a very important book to add to my reading for this year. It's the idea of maybe you don't have an anxiety disorder, but you have anxiety, and that there are ways you can cope with anxiety, understanding what anxiety is, and being able to move past it in a really helpful way. There are people with anxiety disorders, but what if you don't really fall into anxiety disorder, but you just have moments of anxiety? How do we move past it? How do we find our way through? And so this book was recommended to me, so I'm going to give it a read this year, and I will let you know what I think of it. My sister gave this book to me to read, and it's by Gabor, When the Body Says No, The Cost of Hidden Stress. And having been in an environment for years and years of high stress, it made me really think about how stress affected my body. And I thought this might be a really interesting read to just be really aware of, like, what are we doing when we're causing stress to our bodies, and what that cost of that stress is. And realizing that maybe we need to make some serious changes to make sure that we do not lose our health, and that we're able to stay healthy even when we're in moments of stress. So that one's definitely high on my reading list. And this is a book I have read before, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. And basically it for me was a really great read. As much as the title sounds a little bit inflammatory, I found it a very helpful book. And I would definitely suggest that everyone read it. I actually bought copies of this to give away after I read it the first time because I found it really, really empowering. So it's definitely on my reread this year list. So one of the things I've noticed in society is the amount of offense people show in life. And so I found this book by Brant Hansen called Unoffendable. And this is a book that I definitely wanted to read early this year. In a world that shows so much offense, whether or not it's political opinions or this person said this to me at the grocery store and I'm so offended, the amount of things I see on Facebook that are just people showing their offense online, I don't think it's healthy, and I don't think it's the way we are supposed to be. So I thought I would give this book a read so that I could deal with the offense that I sometimes feel in my own life and be able to learn something so that I can show more grace and love to others instead of always falling on offense as my main reaction when something doesn't really feel okay. And then lastly, I added 3 books that are about leadership. And you might wonder, well, why leadership books? I worked in a lot of my roles before. I was in a position of leadership, whether or not it was in my title or just in my everyday working life. I had to show leadership. It's not the easiest thing to be a good leader, and my husband's in a position of leadership at his work, and I've been watching him as he's been working through how to be a good leader and how to have that servant heart in his office. And he is really an incredible leader. And I am very thankful for him because I have learned a lot from him. But these are some of his books that he's been reading and that I would like to read because I think it will help me in whether or not that's in my personal relationships, whether or not it's in some work situations, to be able to show leadership. So I have the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I've had for years, and everyone says to read some. This is the year to read it. I have Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and I saw his TED Talk about this and thought, I really do need to start reading this. And this last one was one that my husband was recommended from work, Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And the idea that to be a great leader, you also need to be a servant. And that goes contrary to how much of this world of ours tells us we need to be on top and in control. So I'm really quite interested to hear what he has to say about the idea of leadership. I will be commenting on these books throughout the year on my website, and I would love for you to follow along with me as I work through this goal of reading these 12 books this year. If you found this video useful, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and comment below. I hope that you have a really great week, and I will talk to you next time.